a problem. Now, to say that the purchase of a firearm should take X, I think really doesn't have anything to do with it. If there's a system in place that's designed to perform a function, and when it's operating properly, that function takes 5 minutes, that's the norm. If it takes 20 minutes, that's outside of the norm, and that's excessive. And we can put dollars and cents to it. We haven't done that.
And just finally, I mean, if you could discuss, how often does that happen?
Well, I'm a little embarrassed to say that we have not cataloged it well.
Wow. Because I'm surprised, because that's on the first page of your testimony, you reference at least 3, 4, 5 different references to this delay. I figured you might have some quantitative data to show how often that happens on this system.
Well, I guess to what end? I mean, I made reference in my statement that over the years, I mean, we're going back to when this began. Over the years, we've reached out to the state police on a variety of issues, and some they have listened. But what we really wanted to try to do was to set up an environment where there was a dialogue where we could talk about this. And when we'd request to sit down, usually it was granted, but there was no real give and take or anything perpetuated that would allow us to keep that kind of information in the hopes that the next meeting we could sit down and address that and what that cost to us. I mean, this, had we had 6 months to prepare for this hearing, we could have done a much better job of that, and we could have created a dollars and cents issue to present to you. But
I'd like to get that information to us. I'd be happy to review it.
Thank
you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll be happy to do that.
Can I respond, Senator, please?
Sure, absolutely.
In my testimony, I mentioned, and this is very conservative on our part, from the time a firearm enters our store and has to be logged, then taken up to our holding area, and then maybe being put out in display, sold to the customer going through the PICS system, filling out the paperwork given to our office manager, who then has to record all this data and the PICS number and send it back into the state police. It's a minimum of $40 in labor costs, not rent, not insurance, not electricity, all that time. Part of that is the cost of doing business. I realize it. But when you have to wait a half an hour, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 50 minutes, that adds up to what I have to pay my employees, have additional employees. We're not like a soft goods store selling ping pong balls that you can just check it out at the register. We have to go through this, and we want to. We want to make sure that the right people have firearms. It's not so much a concern that an occasional customer leaves our store and goes to West Virginia. That's not my concern. My concern is for the other dealers and for ourselves, that so much time is being spent waiting to get an approval on the system.
Thank you. And I certainly agree with you that there's a specific difference between a ping pong ball and a firearm. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And I do appreciate you providing the times. That was one of the questions that came out earlier prior to this hearing, that we need to have some hard data to match what's being said. Senator Alloway?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to state this for the record, that my mom used to work in the PICS system. She's still in that system somewhere. I don't know exactly what she does. But I unfortunately have to tell you a terrible war story. I am absolutely pro-state police. I support the police. My whole family does. Last year I went to buy a shotgun, and it took me over an hour to get through that process. And I have to admit, I was a little tight. I'm busy. And to buy a shotgun and to take me an hour to get through that PICS system, I was a little upset. And to which afterwards I proceeded to call my mother. And I said, what the hell are you guys doing? It took me over an hour that I wasted time. However, on the plus side for the store, I think it might be a double-edged sword. You might want to think about this. Because I had an hour milling around, I ended up buying stuff I didn't need. I ended up buying a whole bunch of stuff I didn't need. Look, I don't know what the solution to this problem is, but I can tell you it is a problem, and I witnessed it firsthand I'm not happy about it. We need to do something here to address this. So thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time to come and tell us.
Well, you are our dream customer that shops while he's waiting instead of leaving.
And I did stay there.
And talking about pro-state police, you know, again, for the record,
Yeah.
I have an uncle who retired 35 years in the Pennsylvania State Police. My cousin was a state police commissioner. I've been pro-state police all my life. We're not anti-state police. We're trying to be pro-business.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I think that's an important fact that everyone needs to remember. This is not about the state police and the men and women out there, you know, defending us. It's about a bureaucratic system that I think has some challenges, and we need to deal with it. So,
Exactly.
thank you.
Thank you.
Well said, Senator. One more comment, George, or question. I remember I came down. You asked me to come down during a busy day, and I think it was a Saturday, and there may have been a sale or some type of event going on. And yeah, I saw where people were delayed, and literally saw people just standing there with a phone to their ear. Now, I left, and then I remember the next day, I guess you lost a bunch of customers. There were 3 or 4 or 5 customers who had to wait and just decided not to purchase handguns. Is that correct?
Well, that can occur. Obviously, probably the majority of our customers, even if they cannot take delivery of the firearm that day, will come back.
Okay.
All right. But there is a number of customers who will not wait, and especially, you know, we're located where 2 interstate highways intersect, and we have billboards that are costly that we have up on the interstate highways. We do get people from out of state who will come in and want to make a purchase of a long arm if they're legally allowed to by the statutes in their state. They're not coming back.
Right. Understood. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Our next testifier is Mr. Kim Stolfer, the chairman of the Firearm Owners Against Crime Legislative Committee for Allegheny County, vice chairman of the Legislative Committee for the Pennsylvania Sportsman Association. Kim, please feel free to begin.
Good morning, Senators. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, I'm not the young man I used to be. I have to put my glasses on. First, I'd like to extend my deepest thanks and gratitude in advance for considering these issues, and we appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today. I've provided lengthy remarks, and I'm going to try to summarize them, but I wanted this on the record because... Okay. I wanted this information on the record because there's a vast amount of material available to me that's occurred and come through my desk ever since 1998. And I'd just like to read the first part here. As you know, there is always a delicate balancing act between responsible public policy and the preservation of individual freedoms. No one, especially supporters of the right to bear arms, wants to see criminals gain access to firearms. Unfortunately, there are times with public policy where it is clearly evident that the public policy is evolving beyond the initial mandate, and in our view, this is where we are at with the Pennsylvania Instant Check system. The history and documentation of the conduct of the PICS system demonstrates to us that the overall mandate of preserving our constitutional right to bear arms has become subservient to a bureaucratic web of regulatory infringements on our constitutional freedom. Accountability to the law and to the people, as well as our Constitution, seems to be growing more and more distant with each passing year of operation. As an example, during the last major shutdown of the PICS system in 2007, for the controversial multi-million-dollar upgrade, the Pennsylvania State Police filed a brief with Commonwealth Court that asserted that the court did not have jurisdiction over a state agency. It is deeply troubling to have any department of government take a position that the bedrock foundation of our Constitution, the right to due process, supposedly does not apply. This is yet another example as to why, in our opinion, the PICS system has outgrown the confines of the law. Now, there are a number of issues I address in my testimony. First of all, the point of contact states. There was a question earlier about 35 states being non-point of contact states full service with the National Instant Check system. That is correct. There are 8 other states that provide for a partial linkage with the National Instant Check system, and are outlined in the map that's provided in my testimony. The issue of the databases that are provided has been an issue with the justification for maintaining this system and being a reason for a more comprehensive check on criminals or people purchasing a firearm. But what's actually happening is the Pennsylvania State Police, or the PICS system I should say, does not provide to the NICS system disqualified individuals from the mental health database, and in some cases even the temporary PFAs. What that does is present an issue where a person leaving this state, moving to another state, or purchasing a firearm out of state, as is provided by law, might not get identified and have aberrant behavior on his record. We find this to be troubling, and a further indication that there needs to be greater accountability, if nothing else, as to how the conduct of the system operates and how it's attuned to the people and to the freedoms we have. Now, this is perhaps one of the most troubling areas for us, and it causes deep concerns for us, is the denial of citizens to purchase firearms based on what criteria. Section 6105 is clear in that it's supposed to be based on convictions, a set number of them. And it also includes any convictions of us outside the state with another state of a similar type of a conviction on the record. But I think the most troubling for me was case number 1, where a federal law enforcement agent had to call me. And this is not the only law enforcement officer. This is just the most outrageous incident. Here's a man who is in leadership in the ICE agency. He's the national liaison between America and Interpol. This is not a person that goes unnoticed in his background checks. And yet, a fist fight that he got into in a party 19 years ago in upstate New York somehow got translated into a domestic violence incident where he got charged with disorderly conduct. Not convicted, charged. Now, when he tried to contact the upstate New York college, he got a very nice elderly lady who said, "Honey, it's going to take us weeks to get these records," because they were archived for so long. But Mr. Full, or Agent Full, was able to buy guns in Florida. That's a full point of contact state. He was able to buy guns in Virginia. He's never been denied before. But he was denied in Pennsylvania because of an arbitrary interpretation. Who tracks this? I don't see that in the firearms reports to the Senate or to the House. You have a right to know that. I think that does bear heavily on their conduct. And I think it bears heavily on how a citizen is supposed to exercise their constitutional freedoms. And that also is at the heart of this, is if they don't operate properly, then what are we doing as far as the state and how are we denying people? Is it really something that's going after the criminal, or is it making criminals of citizens? Because once a person is denied, they achieve a significant blemish on their record. They're forced to spend tens of thousands of dollars on legal fees just to try to get that blemish off the record and get reapproved. Now, in case number 1, you'll notice that I put in a couple of comments. I have all of the emails available from Agent Full on my computer, so I can verify everything here. The man was extremely concerned because this could have impacted his career. And we have members of state police, we have members of local law enforcement, and we have members of federal law enforcement in our organizations that we talk to. Now, the other issue here is the record of sale database that's maintained, also at taxpayer expense. And Michael Ross went to retrieve his firearms in case number 2, and the police chief was acting under the assumption that the record of sale database was somehow